Visit sailrite.com for all your project supplies, tools, and instructions. In this tutorial video, we're going to show you how to make your very own waxed canvas work apron. You'll find that sewing waxed canvas is a lot of fun, as it typically can just be creased and folded for hems. The first step is to cut the DuraWax Light Canvas to size, available from Sailrite.
We're using a scratch awl. Waxed canvas actually marks very nicely with a scratch awl. And I've already indicated some lines on this material, and I'm marking the last position here. And on the screen of the computer, we're going to show you the sizes to cut each one of these rectangles. So all I do is I mark the fabric with the awl like this, and I'm using the clear acrylic ruler to scratch the canvas, and look at those lines, they're crisp. This is Eversoft seating vinyl available from Sailrite, and it almost looks like leather. And so we're going to use it for accent pieces on our apron. You can use this if you'd like, or you can use actual real leather, or you can just use wax canvas if you want. But we're going to use this for some accent pieces.
We'll be showing how to cut our fabric to size with 3 different options with slightly different materials. The first shows wax canvas with Eversoft vinyl fabric accents, while the second shows wax canvas in leather, and then the third shows all waxed canvas. However, there are multiple ways to build a work apron, so you can do whatever you'd like. The apron we're showing here in this video is waxed canvas with Eversoft vinyl fabric accents.
We're going to cut the waxed canvas with scissors. You could also use a rotary cutter, but this works just as well. So we're going to cut all of our patterns out, and we'll show you what it's like when we're done. I've lined up my clear acrylic ruler on the 10, and this line is straight, and it is 6 inches wide. So I'm going to mark the back side with a pencil, and that's my 10-inch by 6-inch piece. Then I'm going to come over 1, 2, 3 by 3, and I'm going to mark a 3 by 3 square. You can cut the vinyl out with scissors. No reason to use a hot knife because it's not going to unravel. We're going to go from corner to corner with our pencil, and we're going to cut this out to make triangles. All of our pieces are now cut out, including our accent panels.
The body panel and the lower pocket requires a curve to be cut into it. We're going to do that next.
This is our 36-inch dimension, and this is the 28-inch dimension. We're going to fold this in half, and we are going to crease it, and it'll create a crease in the wax canvas that if you want it removed, you can remove it with a blow dryer, basically. But I like to put a crease in it. From the fold here, we're going to measure over 7 inches from the fold, and I'm going to use my scratch awl, and I'm going to mark the canvas at that location.
This 7-inch mark determines the width of the top of the apron underneath your neck, as seen here. I'm a rather large guy, and as you can see, that 7 inches results in excess fabric that bunches up slightly underneath my neck. If you're not a very large person, you may want to change that to 6 or 5 inches, as seen here in the chart. Reducing that will reduce the bulk of fabric underneath my neck.
After we've marked here, we're going to come down this side. This is the side that doesn't have the fold, and we're going to measure down 14 inches and place a mark here.
In a little while, we'll be creating a curve from the 14 to 5, 6, or 7-inch location.
From this 7-inch mark from the fold, I'm going to actually mark in a 1 inch here.
If you didn't use 7 inches, but instead 6 or 5, mark over from those locations in the same manner.
And then I'm going to come down at the fold and mark approximately 1 inch here. And then what I will do is I'm going to make a little, basically kind of cutout for your neck area. And I'm going to try to cut this so that it is a little bit of an arch rather than straight to that 1 inch mark. Now, it doesn't have to be anything particular, and you can see that it's sort of curved like this, and that'll work fine. Now, from this 7-inch mark over to this mark, what I want is a gradual curve, and again, there's no right or wrong way to do this. I'm going to use this flexible curve here to kind of gauge that. And I think that looks pretty good right there. So I'm going to trace it from this mark.
If you modified the mark at 7 inches to say 6 inches or 5 inches, you would just be marking up to that point instead.
To this one. And if you don't like it, you can change it, but I think that looks pretty good. Then I'm going to cut here. Now this is cutting out both the left side and the right side at the same time. Okay, good. So now when we open this up, this is what it should look like.
The 7 inches at the top has now become 14 inches, but after hems are done, the width at the top will be about 12 inches.
This is our 17-inch by 13-inch piece. So I'm going to fold it like this, so this would measure 13 inches at the fold. And I'm going to crease it. And again, those creases can come out later with a hairdryer. So here's the fold, and this is the raw edges of the fold. I'm going to measure over 4 inches from here, and then coming down, I'm going to measure from that corner 7 inches here and put a mark. Then I'm going to make a fairly pleasing curve here. This is where your pocket's going to be for your hand or tools to go into. And we're going to mark it like that. Now we're going to cut it with scissors, and that cuts both pieces, and when you're done that should look like that.
Now all our fabric is cut to size. It's time to make the bottom pocket first.
This is our 6-inch by 11-inch piece, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to strike a line a 1/2 inch from the bottom edge with my scratch awl, make it fairly deep so that it creases on that, and then I'm going to do it 1/2 inch here and also on the other short side, so I can see through my clear acrylic ruler, because that makes it pretty easy to do this. Now at the top we're going to do a double hem, and so there we're going to measure in a 1/2 inch plus 1 inch and score the fabric. So 1/2 inch here, and then I'm going to go to 1 inch here and score the fabric there. Now the nice thing about our waxed canvas is that it creases beautifully on those scores. So I'm going to crease it there, the bottom edge. I'm going to crease it here. This creates a 1/2 inch single hem on the sides. And then at the top, I'm going to leave that for last, and I'm going to crease it at a 1/2 inch and another 1/2 inch, making a double 1/2 inch hem. So here, and then here. Now there is some bulk at the corners, but that bulk basically helps to reinforce the pocket. And I'm going to do the exact same thing here, using that center foot as a guide. And again, I'm going to do a little bit of reversing and sew down to the other end and do some reversing there as well. I'm going to go ahead and fold this in half and put a little mark in the center so I know where the center is, like that. And then you can position this anywhere you want. I don't think it's good up here. I actually think it needs the support of this, the rivets that we're going to be putting in there. So I like to be very close to this area here. So it could be flush with it straight across. I'm going to go do a little bit above that, so I'm going to position it right there. So you should think about this. What's the best side to start with? It's actually here, because I can sew this direction, then I can turn it and sew this direction, then I can turn it and sew this direction, because we're not going to sew the top shut. So I'm going to start sewing here at this corner and make sure everything's centered and straight, and it looks like it is. Remember, double-sided tape will not stick well to waxed canvas. That's why I don't typically use it. So now we're going to start at this corner, and I'm going to sew forward in a couple stitches, and then I'm going to sew backwards, and I actually sometimes sew off the fabric a little bit there just to make sure that it's good, and I'm going to do it one more time because this can come under a lot of stress. I'm going to sew to the corner. Now I'm not going to do any reversing here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bury my needle about that same distance from this raw edge and lift my presser foot, which I've done, roll this around, lower my foot, and continue to sew. Don't forget to lower your foot, because if you don't lower your foot, then your sewing machine will jam up. So we're going to do the same thing here. Maybe a little bit more. That's a little bit too much. I'm going to use a reverse lever so the needle gets buried right there. Pivot, come up, and I'm going to do some reversing up here. There we go. Now if you want, you could just leave this open, or you can even sew just down the middle and have two large pockets. But I'm going to put a few sew lines on this. So I'm going to measure over about 2 inches from the edge with a clear acrylic ruler, and I'm going to strike a line. I'm not going to strike over top of my threads. And then I'm going to come over, say, 1 inch, and this would be good for like a pencil, and strike a line. And you can do more if you want.
When creating pockets, you may actually want to measure for specific items that you want to insert in them. Like our seam stick, we left enough room for it.
And I've got all kinds of nifty sewing tools, including my basting tape. Pretty cool. Okay, so to do this, again, I'm just going to hold the trailing threads, and I'm going to sew with a little bit of reverse. Whoa, took off on me. And then sew up that line. So I'm going to sew all the way to the top and come off of that and do quite a bit of reversing here to make sure that it's nice and strong. And you can see that I've done that on both of them. Now we're going to fold this with a double hem 1/2 inch, and everywhere else with a single hem 1/2 inch. So we're going to flip it over, and I'm not going to measure this. I'm actually just going to eye this. And this is a gentle curve, and since we're doing such a small hem, it actually takes it pretty easily, as you can see. So that's our first, and then we'll just fold it one more time, and we've got our double hem here. This is where our hand's going to go into the pocket. And then everywhere else, we're going to do a 1/2 inch single hem. And again, if you want to measure like we've shown you, you can do that with the clear acrylic ruler. But I'm going to take a guess at it, and look how beautifully the wax canvas folds and really stays folded on the creases that you make. And then a 1/2 inch here, and we'll do the rest in the exact same manner. Now before we do the 1/2 inch hem here, I'm going to finish this with our double hem, just like we did on the other side, because we want this to fall in the same area as it did over here. The only thing I'm going to sew is this double fold here and the double fold here. And I do actually like to sew with my hems down, though that's not usually the normal practice. I'm going to turn down the worker bee system to half the speed so I can be assured that I'm going to follow this edge nicely and it's not going to take off on me. And what I'll do is some reversing here. And we'll just use the outside edge of the center foot as our guide to follow this gentle curve. Now make sure this hem up here stays folded under, because you want to sew that through into this edge. But we're not going to sew any other edges, just this one and the other sides.
If your UltraFeed sewing machine doesn't come with the Worker Bee Power Pack system, you can always upgrade.
And then do reversing.
Coming up next, we're going to create the upper pocket. It can be made out of wax canvas, leather, or the vinyl material with a wax canvas liner.
Now in this chapter, we're going to sew this seating vinyl accent piece on with the wax canvas liner, and we're going to show you how to do that. If you're not using this and you're using the waxed canvas instead, and it would just be sewn down in place of that. And again, if you were using leather, you would not have any hems at all, and you would just sew the leather down in the same manner. So you've got several choices for this top pocket. If you want to use wax canvas, you'll need to cut it to 10 inches by 6.5 inches, because what we're going to have to do with that, if you want to just use a wax canvas for the pockets at the top, is we're going to create a single hem, 1/2 inch single hem. I've already got it scored to that on the two ends, then a single hem on the bottom. So because I scored it, it folds easily. And then at the top, it's a double hem that equals a 1/2 inch. So it scores on that creased line, and then we score it one more time. And then we'll take it to the sewing machine and we will sew this top edge here, but we will not sew here or here until we get it on the apron. And I'm going to do some reversing here at the beginning and then sew down this side. And then do some reversing here at the end. Now we won't sew anything else until we get it on the apron. So this would be our pocket for the top of the apron.
As you should already know, we're using Eversoft vinyl fabric with a waxed canvas lining, and we're using that for our top pocket. So now we're going to show you how to do that instead of just using waxed canvas or leather.
So we're now going to get our 9" by 6" piece and our 6" by 10" piece of vinyl. If you use leather, you don't need this piece because the back side of leather is tough enough. But since this side has a fabric scrim on it, we don't want this to be visible with our tools coming in and out of the pocket, so we're going to reinforce it with this. So I'm going to take this piece, I'm going to flip it so the wrong side is facing up, and then I'm going to place a seam stick 1/4 inch for canvas and upholstery along the top edge and also the all sides, basically, very close to the raw edge. I'll peel off the transfer paper, revealing the glue on all these sides, and we're going to create a 1/2 inch hem. Now I didn't mark this fabric, I'm just going to gauge a 1/2 inch by eye. So I'm going to start folding it here to approximately a 1/2 inch, just going by eye. And then I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do the 2 short sides. Same thing. We'll show you what it looks like when we're done. This does create a little bit of bulk here at the corners, and so what I typically do is I just take my scissors and I cut it out. I don't go all the way to the flat side of the fabric, because if I do, then I can sometimes see that. But if you just cut off that dog ear like that, that reduces the bulk a little bit. And I'll do that to all the corners. Now we're going to take this piece and we are going to score it at 1 inch along one of the long sides. This will become our top side. The other sides we're going to do nothing to. We're going to fold this at that 1 inch location. This creates a 1 inch single hem there. Now the idea is that this will go on right across here like this, and hopefully these edges are not exposed, and it looks like we did it just about perfect. They're just inside of the edge of our vinyl piece. So now we're going to take this to the sewing machine and sew these together so you don't see this edge, and this will provide the protection for the back side of the vinyl. I'm only going to be sewing the top edge here. I'm going to leave the bottom unsewn. Now for this, what I want to do is I want this fold to be slightly underneath that vinyl piece, and I don't want it to move while I'm sewing. So in this application, I am going to use Wonder Clips. You could use office clamps too if you don't have these. But this will keep it in position so I don't have to worry about it moving on me. So I'm set up for a 6mm stitch length, and I'm going to place this edge right up against the inside edge of my center foot, and my needle's in the center position. I'm going to lower my foot and I'm going to move this clip because it's pretty much in position. And I do want to do some reversing here. Okay, and then I'm going to carefully sew, move the clips as I get there along that edge.
In retrospect, I should have put that stitch closer to the fold.
Now see this little bulk here? Sometimes what I like to do is to take a screwdriver and kind of push it down so that I get it nice and neat there, and that I kind of hold it there as I sew. And then we'll do some reversing here. Okay, and that, we're not going to sew anything else on this right now.
That top pocket is ready to be sewn onto the apron, whether it be vinyl, leather, or wax canvas.
From this hollow here in the center, I'm going to measure down 7 inches, and that's where I'm going to stick this pocket. Now if you don't consider the hollow, or if you cut your hollow differently than mine, go from edge corner to corner, and obviously that would be 8 inches. down from there. But we're going from the hollow, so from here to here, we like to place this pocket at 7 inches down. We have not completed our double hem here. This will be a 1/2 inch double hem, and everywhere else it will be too. So I'm doing this before I do those double hems. So now we need to make sure that it's centered, and we have that center line to use as a reference. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to score the waxed canvas with my scratch awl so that it's nice and straight. So make sure you get this on straight. Remember, double-sided tape does not stick to the waxed canvas. So I'm going to start here at this this side so we can easily sew around. And make sure you do some reversing here. And when we get to the bottom edge, I'm going to use this to kind of pinch this together so that I can make sure that the vinyl is is folded over nicely there. So I'm actually going to hold it while I sew up to that with these pliers. One more stitch, and right about there. Okay, lift my foot. I'm going to turn on my buried needle, and you will have to wrinkle up this wax canvas a little bit. No big deal. The crease marks actually make your apron look great, in my opinion. Don't forget to lower your foot. I'm going to use some chalk here and just mark different size pockets, mostly 1.5 inch or 2 inches. You can make them whatever you want. If you have specific size tools, you can make sure they fit in there. But I think 1.5 inches makes good sense for all of the pockets here. Maybe we'll leave one bigger one. So I'm going to sew, doing some reversing at the top, and sew a little bit outside of the edge of the canvas. And you do want to do some reversing here because this is going to come under some stress. And we're gonna fold our canvas so that it goes underneath the arm of the sewing machine nicely, and just follow our line to the bottom and do some reversing there as well.
The white chalk will easily come off with a wet rag.
And we'll do that for every one of these lines that we put on here. Here's a little hint. When you're done sewing, for areas like this, I don't even cut my threads. I just let them come across, and then I don't have to worry about holding the tails. And then we can cut them after we're done sewing these in.
It's now time to sew the bottom pocket onto the apron.
So now this goes on, and what I want to do here is I want to put it about 14 inches from the top here. And if it were straight up here at the top, that would be 15 inches. If you measure from between here, it's approximately 2 inches. It doesn't have to be exact, but about 14 inches from here, or 2 inches up from the bottom of this pocket. And then we want to center that. We already have a center line, so we know exactly where the center is. And I'm going to actually do this same thing again at the corner so that I know right where this goes. We're going to scroll up the canvas here so we can get it underneath the arm of the sewing machine. Now don't worry about all these feet marked from the presser feet. Remember, they come out with a heat gun. I'm going to start here at the top edge, making sure that it's centered and on my marks. And we're going to sew all the way across here and do some good reversing here. Okay, we're going to skip this area because we don't want to sew that. That's where our hands are going to go in, and our accessories and tools. We're going to come over here, and I noticed I didn't cut my threads. I'll cut those later. Do some good reversing. When we get to this corner, we're going to bury the needle and pivot. And we'll finish it up along the bottom edge and the other side just in the same manner. Now some people like to have the sides separated so their hands would only go here and your tools wouldn't go on the other side of the pocket. And if you wanted to do that, you would just sew and reverse here and sew through the center and reverse up here. And then that way your hands would only go in so far, but we're okay having the whole pocket be open like this.
And next, we'll hem the sides of the apron.
So we're going to flip this over to the back side and we're going to create our hems around the perimeter. And again, if you want to be precise, you can actually use a clear acrylic ruler, but on these curves you really can't. So I'm going to fold it over a 1/2 inch, and we are going to do double hems, just gives it a more finished look. So beautifully creased there. We'll come over here, we'll create this one. This one's got a slight curve to it as well. And I'm just visibly looking for a 1/2 inch. We're going to do this all around the perimeter. Here's a little trick. We're going to actually score the edge of the fabric because we're going to create a 1/2 inch double hem here. And we can take out the bulk of the corner, so a 1/2 inch, I scored the material, and then I lay this on the 1 inch and I score the material. And then over here, I'm going to do the same thing, 1 inch and a 1/2 inch. First we'll start with a 1/2 inch so you don't get confused. And then we'll go up 1 inch. Okay, and then if you want to take out the bulk, you don't have to do this. It makes a pretty neat corner for home sewing machines. This is kind of important so you don't have to sew through all that bulk. Then we'll come up here and we'll cut on that line and take this out. And then what I'll do is I'll guess about a 1/2 inch here. Take this out and cut on the 1/2 inch line here. And then we cut about a 1/2 inch here. And we cut a 1/2 inch here. And notice I'm not being very precise with this. Mainly because you don't necessarily have to. So now we got a staggered stair step basically. Now when I fold this over to this line, 1/2 inch, then I'll take this and I'll fold this up a 1/2 inch, and then I come down here and I fold this a 1/2 inch, and then I fold this up to that point. You see what I mean? And then you fold this one more time to create your double hem, and then you fold this one more time to create your double hem, and now you've got a corner that is equal the thickness here, and through here. So this is a choice that you can do if you'd like. It makes a pretty neat corner for home sewing machines. This is kind of important so you don't have to sew through all that bulk. The only real issue to this technique is that it only works well with 90-degree corners. So for any corner that's not 90 degree, like up here, that can't be done. But there's often not as much bulk up here. So here's a double hem here, and then we'll create our single hem here around this perimeter. And before I finish it, I'm going to come back here and create yet another double hem here. So notice how that double hem basically kind of takes a different turn here, and the bulk is kind of slightly off a little bit, and hopefully your sewing machine can sew through that, but you really just can't do that for transitions that aren't 90 degrees. For this other 90-degree bottom edge, we're going to repeat that process here, but for everything else that is not a 90-degree corner, we can't really cut out the material like we could here. Okay, so we have our double hem here placed in, and then if we fold this once and twice, because I do want a double hem here, look at all that bulk. It's just a lot. And this is not a perfect 90-degree corner. So what I'm going to do is I've already got it creased. You can kind of see where everything was falling right here. This is where I want it to be, which is 1 inch over, and this is 1 inch over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut basically right just a little bit shy of that, straight across from that corner. So see how it's a little bit outside that corner? I mean, I could cut it right at the corner. So after we've taken that out, I'm going to create our double fold here, and then I'm going to create our double fold here. And what I'm going to do is kind of tuck this in like that, and that reduces our bulk and pretty much makes it so there's no raw edge. There's a little bit of raw there, but it's not going to be a big deal. Now this time I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow this line again with this foot, but I'm going to move my needle to the left so that I get a little bit closer to that raw edge over here. And I'm just going to start here and do some reversing and make sure that my hems are in place here, which they are. So just as you go around, if you've creased it well, you should have some nice hems here. When you get to a corner, stop before you get to that corner and make sure that everything is laying as nicely as possible and tucked in as nicely as you can get it. I'm going to tuck this in just a little bit. There we go. I'm not going to do any reversing here. I'm just going to bury my needle and pivot on that buried needle yet again. Here we are coming to that 90-degree corner, and I'm basically going to bury my needle in that turn and pivot. And there we are.
We're going to sew accent pieces onto the corner pockets.
Now, I don't like having this corner left open because things can fall in there and you can't get to them. So what I like to do is I like to either use my leather, or in this situation we're going to use the Eversoft seating vinyl. And it's true, it has raw edges, but this is basically just a accent piece. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew around this very close to the raw edge, and that'll keep items from going into that corner. It'll basically keep things kind of in this pocket area. I'm not going to put it all the way to the corner here. I'm going to leave these stitches exposed a little bit. I think just looks better that way, but that's a choice that you can make. I'm going to put my needle all the way to the right, and I'm going to use that center foot again as a guide.
If you are not using vinyl or leather as an accent piece, I still recommend sewing a triangle here.
2 stitches forward and 2 stitches back will be enough for my reversing. Now the closer you sew to the edge of this will keep it from, kind of showing the nakedness of the edge. That's why I want to get very, very close to the raw edge.
You may be asking, why do I recommend that you still sew a triangle here even if you don't have an accent piece? Well, that's because I don't like items shifting to the corner of my pocket. They're hard to reach. And the triangle will keep that from happening.
I'm going to use this pair of pliers to kind of pull this down a little bit.
Sarah recently picked up these fabric edge match pliers. I've used them in a lot of applications, and you'll see them showing up in a lot of future videos. They're great.
Okay, and I don't like to sew in reverse, so I am going to jam all the material underneath here and sew in forward. A sewing machine always sews better in forward than in reverse. So even if you scrunch the material up like that, no big deal.
In the next chapter, we're going to be installing a tool loop, and our loop will actually hold scissors, but it can hold other items as well. You can install these anywhere you'd like.
This is a 5x5 square. The width is 5 inches. You may need to make yours longer depending on what kind of tool you're going to be installing in it. We're going to fold it right in half to crease it in the middle. Then we're going to fold it here so that this comes to the middle, and then we're going to fold this so that it comes to the middle. Okay, and then we're going to unfold this. We're going to cut off this edge by about a 1/2 inch in, and on this fold line, same thing on all 4 of the edges. So we're not measuring, we're guessing. It's good enough. Then what we'll do is we'll fold these in and then fold this over like so. And that gives us a piece on the top that's not too thick on the edges, but it still looks good. Now these trailers on the side, what you can do there to keep them from showing up is actually just do this. and that'll keep them from showing their ugliness when it's folded in half. And this is a very hefty and strong strap for your hammer or your scissors or whatever tool you want to drop into it. We're going to sew here and here. We're going to sew a little bit of sewing here and doing a little bit of reversing. And we're sewing very close to that edge. Notice my needle's in the right position, and I'll do some reversing here. And then I'm just going to flip it around, and we're going to do the same thing on this side. So now you want to take whatever tool you plan to put on here, whether it be a hammer like this, and make sure that it can easily be slipped down, or if you put scissors in here, you want to make sure that the scissors don't fall through it. So you, for the scissors is what I'm going to do. So that means I'm going to flatten this a little bit, and that's perfect. So they'll just sit right there. So I'm going to sew up to here and up to here. Notice that I'm also sewing kind of like where my tools would be. So my tools, I can still access this pocket easily. You can position this anywhere you want. And I like to sew it on the right side, which is the left side if I'm facing it, so that, because I'm right-handed. You can do a box X stitch here, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a straight stitch, 2 rows with reversing several times to make sure that it's held down well. So I'll probably do this about 4 times maybe. Okay, there's one. And then I'll come over here and I'll put a second one. And then what I'm going to do next is I'm going to lift this up and give it a little bit of a pocket area for my tool to sit in, and sew it right here.
Now we're going to cut our webbing to size and create the straps that are required for the apron.
So there are 2 types of webbing that I recommend for this. This is a nylon on this side, and it's nice and soft, but it's a little bit more expensive than the polypropylene on this side. You can see this has a larger weave. It's fairly soft, but a little bit stiffer. I'm going to use the nylon, even though it costs a little bit more, because I just think it's a little bit more of a professional look. And this is a 1-inch size. We're going to cut 4 strips of webbing, one that's 3 inches, and we're going to use a hot knife, and we're using a cutting glass underneath the hot knife to prevent damaging the tabletop, and this helps to seal the ends. Then the next one's going to be 25, so I'm going to put my finger on 25 over here, and then I'm going to pull it to that point, and then we'll cut a 12-incher and a 23-incher. These are YKK side release heavy duty buckles in black, and they're 1 inch. Notice they're adjustable on one end and the other end is not. This is the wrong side because it's got the printing on it. Not that it matters, but I'd rather have the right side looking out. I'm going to put the 3-inch strip into this and fold it in half. And I'm actually going to put this as the outside. I'm going to put it underneath here, right along this edge like that, and we'll sew this on. We're going to flip this over to the back side and sew this on with 2 rows of a straight stitch again. If you'd like to do a box X stitch, you can, but this works. I'm going to reduce the stitch length when I'm sewing the webbing. I like to sometimes sew about a 3 millimeters in forward and reverse. I'm going to move the needle to the right to get closer to the strap. And again, I'm going to do a reversing probably 4 times. And then we're going to come up and move this over. And this time I'm going to put the needle in center position. Onto this corner, we're going to sew the 25-inch piece, and we're going to position it just like this. we're going to take this webbing and make sure that it's running flat, and then we're going to feed it through the buckle from this side and then through here like that, and that means it's totally adjustable. Okay, so at the end I'm going to follow this, and this is the back side. I'm going to fold this almost like a 1/2 inch twice, and then I'm going to sew a straight stitch right down the middle. This just helps keep the buckle from pulling out of the end if somebody goes to the extreme setting. And I'm only going to go across it twice. What I like to do is I like to put the apron on, and then I like to basically put the strap where my belt is, which is right here for me. So I'm just going to hold the side like that and say, okay, that's where I want the strap to go around my waist. Okay, now we have the 12-inch piece of webbing, and this is the buckle. This is the wrong side because it's got the writing on it. So I'm going to feed the buckle in through the right side and fold this flap over to the wrong side like that. Okay, and then I'm going to sew this, and I'm going to sew it with the buckle on the inside here like that, and I'm going to move my needle to the right to get closer to the buckle, and I'm going to sew 2 rows of a straight stitch again. There we go. Okay, this is the 12-inch piece, and I've marked where I want it to go right about there for me, and I'm going to put it on the right side, which is, if I'm facing this, that would come around to my back. Now see how this logo, or this is the wrong side, because this would actually strap on like this. So I want this to be facing up, and we're going to sew it on right there.
We're going to show this in double time. We're just going to sew along this hemmed edge, and then we're going to move and sew a straight stitch along the inner edge of the webbing. You could sew a box X stitch here if you'd like.
Then on the other side, this is the 23-inch piece, and we're going to sew it on in the same manner.
We are not going to show this.
Okay, so now we've got to put this buckle on, so make sure this is flat, like it is, and this would be wrapping around like this. So you want to go in through here and out through here. And that way, when it comes around to the back side, it would strap into the adjacent one. You know, you should probably test this all to make sure that it's perfect, like that, and then you can adjust it like that. So we're going to put a 1/2 inch fold going under, in other words like this, twice, and sew right in the middle like we did previously.
Now at stress points, we're going to install some rivets. There are multiple types of rivets you can use. We're going to use the double cap.
We're going to install some double cap rivets in spots which will come under stress, like here. If you put a big tool in there, this may actually pull away here. So these are the double cap rivets. There's the male and there's the female. The male is going to go through the hole. Okay, we have a cutting pad on the back side, and then I'm going to use an 1/8 inch hole cutter. And I'm going to try to go between the threads here and punch an 1/8 inch hole. Then I remove my cutting pad, and I'm going to put a steel block back here. Then I'm going to take my male and stick it through the hole like that, and put it on top of that metal block or something hard. Then I'm going to take the female and push it onto that post, and then give it a few little taps with a mallet. And there's what it looks like from the top side, and there's what it looks like from the bottom side. Heavy whack with a mallet, then smash. Smash it, and she's installed.
So here's our fold, and here's a heat gun. You can use a blow dryer as well, but that basically kind of causes the wax to become soft again. And as you can see, it's starting to disappear. So if you want to take those out, don't worry about it. They come out pretty easily with a heat gun or a blow dryer. So I've loaded it up with some of my favorite tools for my sewing projects. Put it on, strap goes around the back, and it's in a spot that's pretty easy to snap, and you can adjust it if you'd like. But I like it just like this, and if you look here, I've got spots for my hands to go down. I can easily grab my scissors and reinsert my scissors. Got spots for other tools inside these pockets, and I've got all kinds of nifty sewing tools, including my basting tape.
Coming up next is the materials and the tools list, including the amount of materials that we used. Sailrite stocks many colors of DuraWax Light Waxed Canvas. We used brown. The Eversoft vinyl fabric was an accent piece. You don't need to use that, or you could use leather, or you can just simply use wax canvas for the entire apron. If you have any questions about the materials or tools that we used, feel free to give Sailrite a call or email us. We're glad to help.
Scissors.
I'm Eric Grant, and from all of us here at Sailrite, thanks for watching.